What is going on, everybody? Coach Ben Berluti here from Team Pro Physique, and today we're going to hear from one of my clients who went from 208 pounds to 185 pounds in the span of 4 months, dropped 5 inches off of his waist, even got down to 180 at his lowest at the beginning of a reverse diet. And after we finished our fat loss dieting phase, he has been able to sustain his weight loss. Okay, we are 7 months into a reverse diet. Calories are up by close to 1,200 at this point. Cardio is very, very minimal. He's going to tell us how at age 47 he has been able to, number one, drop the weight, and number two, sustain it. Stay tuned.
There we go. Okay. So yeah, Matt. So I know we started working together about a year ago, right? Um, what was
Right.
your fitness journey, like prior to us working together and kind of what led you to Pro Physique? Just kind of like a more of like a background about you, like, I know you've been training for a long time, that sort of thing, tracking all that good stuff. So like where were we at with, that at that point?
Right. So I started in my late 20s and early 30s, and I was a distance runner, a marathon guy. And, at that time, there was enough physical activity to pretty much offset anything I did nutritionally. I could pretty much get away with whatever I wanted to do. I started to run less, lift weights more, and I always was on top of my nutrition. Uh, I did when I first started to run, I did vegetarian for an entire year. Years
Wow.
later, I did strict paleo for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. So I had always been aware nutritionally of I kind of knew what to do. And then I've
Yeah.
had times where, like most people, you just kind of slip and you know what the right thing is to do. You just kind of get away from it. Life, there's life circumstances that you just either eat the wrong thing or eat poorly, not necessarily intentionally, but it just kind of happens. So when I when I came on and started working with you, the main thing I wanted to get into was accountability. That was the main thing that I needed. Like I said, nutritionally, I kind of knew
Right.
I knew the parameters that I needed to be within,
Of
but
course.
I
Yeah.
just never really had, okay. And I had never done anything like take progress pics, take measurements, have somebody to report to every week. It was just me looking at the mirror, to myself, but I didn't really have any accountability. So I really wanted to just see is like, okay, what can I really do if there's accountability? We're doing progress pics and you really commit to it. It's really easy to say, yeah, I'm going to take progress pics every week. And then you do it for 2 weeks and there's nobody there to hold you accountable and you just stop doing it. So I knew when we started to work together, that there would be somebody saying, hey, where's your check-in? Where's your progress pics? What about the meal plan? Are we hitting these macros? I just really needed the accountability.
Yeah, that's huge. Accountability is huge. And like you said, you're like, okay, in my head, I'm going to do progress pics every week, measurements, report my macros, body weight. Like you could do it to send it to yourself if you will, right? But like, and maybe
Correct.
that's easy at first in a diet, but let's say you're, at week 12, 13, like things are really starting to get tough, right? You're getting hungry, that sort of thing. Now it's kind of like, take a week off, right? Maybe I'm going to go out to eat, right? But it's easy when you have a coach on your end for sure. So, now fast forward a little bit to when we started, we got to that fat loss phase, like in the course of 16 weeks, looking at the actual numbers, we're saying about originally, about 208, 37 inches on the waist or so, or 35, I should say. And then at the end of our
Hmm.
dieting phase, there at the end of October of 2023, so it was just about 4 months of being in that dieting phase, 16 weeks. We dropped 5 inches on the waist down to actually a little under 30 and a quarter. So 30 inches, a little over 5 inches, and then 185 on the scale. We started a reverse, and we saw some more drop weight down to 180. So 208 down to 180. Through the whole phase, the fat loss phase itself. What was like the main thing or main things? It could be multiple that you found allowed you to be successful. So you said accountability, right? That's huge. what are some other things that just kind of pop to your mind, right? And it's like no right or wrong answer, just because it's kind of there's some similarities and also differences at the same time from person to person. So what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so the accountability was huge for me, but then, like with most people, when you start to see the needle move, and you start to see that forward progress and you really start to gain some traction, that makes it pretty easy, even in a deficit, even when you're hungry, to stick with it.
Motivating.
So there was never a point where I really thought like I'm totally miserable. This is horrible. I'm just going to quit. Like it never entered my mind. I've always been somebody that's really structured, and when I decide I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. I'm going to follow through with it. But it really, once we started momentum and we started to see some change, it just really rolled. I had a few times where it's like, yeah, I'm going to bed hungry. I'm waking up hungry. But we sprinkled in some refeed days.
Yeah.
So we had days where there was a little bit of a mental break, and it was manageable all the way around. So
Yeah, no, that is so huge. Having that goal, and then it's motivating when you see the progress, right? And what kind of allows you to implement things like refeeds is that you're tracking super consistently, right? On your regular days and your refeed days, we're tracking those calories. The refeed's not a free for all, right? It's a controlled increase, and that's
correct.
like huge, right? That we're taking into account our caloric intake. That we go, okay, I'm actually in a true deficit. I'm gonna be very disciplined with that. Like you're still able to include foods that you liked, right? But of course, they're getting less, right? So that's going to allow us to get weight loss and that sort of thing. So yeah, those are two huge things, right? And like you said, when you start to see that progress, it's more motivating. When things kind of stagnate, it gets a little frustrating, but we just had momentum like that whole time. We made the necessary adjustments week by week as needed, right? But it was kind of like this linear drop through those 4 months. So after we got to your goal, right? It was, let's see, it was late October.
Late
We start,
October.
yeah. So we started to reverse at that time, and now we're in April. So good about 7 months later now at this point, 6 to 7 months. Looking at the reversing process, so calories were below 2,000 right at the end of your deficit. It was right around 10 times your body weight at that point, right?
Hmm.
Um, and now we're close to 2,900 calories. Cardio, we were doing like an hour, 6 days a week, down to 40 minutes. Oh, 40 minutes a week. I specified cardio. Now I know you're on your feet a lot, but that was something that was constant back then, right? What are things that have allowed you to be as successful at maintaining, the weight loss through this whole reversing phase?
Yeah, so just to go back and recap, as a matter of fact, I looked on my calendar today before our call, and I believe Sunday would be 6 months of reversing. So we're like 6 months of reversing in total.
Yeah,
Um, I believe we started at a level, I think we're around 22 or 2300 was where we started from. So we had to dip pretty low to get things to move. So now on the reverse, we're coming back up. And as you said, we're at like 29 and change, 2,900. I think it's 2910, 2009-10 is where our calories
yeah,
are at now. So getting close to 3,000 calories a day on that reverse, which is huge. It's going to put us in a good place for another fat loss phase. Hopefully, we've talked about this before, maybe where we can diet at 2,500 instead of 1,750, much,
right.
much more manageable. But in terms of keeping the reverse going, I'll admit it was a little bit of a challenge in the beginning because fat loss phase, like we said earlier, you see the needle move, you're starting to lose weight, you see the difference in the
Yeah,
pictures, you start to see, your abs and things are, and now you're kind of going a different way, and it's a different approach, it's a different goal. But again, I think really what made it something that we've been able to sustain is the accountability, checking in, and knowing that we're going to do it slow, steady, in a controlled manner. There's no free for alls. There's no you know, cheat days, or we don't do anything extreme. We make small incremental adjustments, just like we did when we were going down, and now we're going
yeah,
back up. So the accountability, and just another thing that's motivating is seeing that you are eating more and more and more, but your weight is basically staying the same.
yeah.
We'll see the little fluctuations to account for carbohydrate, water, glycogen. We'll see those things, but as a general rule, I mean, we are eating way, way more and we're not putting on, we're not just adding body fat just really rapidly. It's
Right.
really a slow and controlled process. So uh, that's been that's been something that's pretty motivating too, is just to see the fact that hey, you can bump your calories metabolism to ramp back up. So that's been motivating too, to see that it can be done.
Yeah, and like you said, that beginning part of reverse can be really tough, right? It's like, all right, I hit my goal, but now we're not watching that needle drop anymore. Now we're working on reversing to maintain, right? So often that first like month or two can be really tough. But as you start to get calories up to a point where it's actually substantially higher, hunger levels start to come down, your overall sense of well-being improves, right? Your training improves in the gym, right? It's not like you're just kind of lethargic
Mhm.
training, right? Pumps are better,
Right.
strength's better. That's pretty cool to see as well, right? So yeah, that reverse, like you said, is often just the hardest thing for folks, and that's why it's like, hey, having like a real life example like yourself, is just seeing what helped for you specifically and personally. It's really powerful, right? Just because someone at any age can do it, right? Like I'm in my 20s, so people are like, oh, well, Ben, you're young, that's easy. Hey, like that's tough when you got family, right? We're in our mid 40s, right? But we're still able to do it, right? So it's just a
That's right.
matter of being accountable to yourself, right? Whether you're reporting to a coach or not, being accountable, and making those small changes as needed and tracking everything, right? Both calories and then like weight and measurements, that sort of thing
Right.
helps you be successful in the long run.
Right. And I think for so many people, it's so easy to get, regardless of the approach that people take, whether they do it, not that this is the right way, but whether they crash diet or whether they lose it responsibly like we did, it's so easy to get to the end of it and then just say, okay, goals achieved, diet's over, and then we immediately go back and we pile on, calories just so fast, and that's where I
Yes.
think people really go off the rails. So having that accountability and for us to be able to work together is where we're able to keep that in check, and like, we know we're going to do this responsibly and gradually uptick it, as opposed to just, we're just going to go completely off the rails and just kind of go back to the way that we were doing. So it's been a real learning process for me to see that, yeah, we can do this and we can come back out of a fat loss or I still prefer the term fat loss as opposed to diet. That's a fat loss phase.
Yeah.
And we can come out of it responsibly. And one of the goals that I had going into this was I didn't want to just like rebound hard. I wanted to keep kind of what we had worked for from a physique standpoint, to try to maintain that as best we can and keep that intact. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that. Obviously, on a reverse, you're going to gain weight. You're taking in more
Yeah.
calories, but it's responsible weight, and it's been something that I feel like if we wanted to slip back into a fat loss phase in the near term, like we could do that and be in a good place. It's not like we're trying to drop 30 or 40 pounds. We're
Right.
probably talking, for me right now, probably somewhere between 10 and 12 to get back to where we were. So it's totally doable.
Well, there you have it. Matt's success is very inspiring and motivating to me. And if you would like to work with a coach one on one to achieve your weight loss goals and sustain your weight loss, reach out to me at ben@prophysique.com. I'll be more than happy to set up a phone consultation with you. We can talk about your goals and how we can get you to them. Take care.